Today we're going to be reviewing 7th grade social studies. This will be all the material we've covered throughout the entire year. So get ready, we're going to move kind of fast through this because we're going to try to do it in 10 minutes or less. The first thing we looked at was an introduction of geography, economics, and government. Geography, really all you got to know is where are the continents, where are the oceans, how do we find locations on the earth. For economics, we talked about economic systems like the free market economy. We talked about command economies. We talked about mercantilism. We also talked about a traditional economy. Just remember, free market means freedom of choice. You have the freedom to choose how you want to buy something as long as you have the money, or how you want to sell it. For a command economy, the government controls all those decisions. And for traditional, you do things the same way they've always been done. You follow tradition. For government, we looked at multiple forms of government. The big ones we need to remember are absolutism, where one person with divine right is in complete control. And then we have a dictatorship, where one person by force keeps power. And then we have democracies and republics, where it's more of the people's choice for leading. Thing, Renaissance. This was the first real part in history we started. It focuses on Greek and Roman art, literature, and knowledge. The guy in the picture is Leonardo da Vinci. So during this time, there is a big surge in learning and education for the classics, the Roman and Greek writing. This all leads to more thought on what's in the world. Also, more greed for how can we get richer. So it leads to world exploration. World exploration is all about the search for trade routes to Asia. Search for gold. If you can't find trade routes or gold, you look for slaves. And finally, we set up colonies. It's led by the Spanish first, but then other countries follow. And the ultimate result is most native civilizations in the Americas die out. It all starts with Christopher Columbus sailing to the New World, even though he didn't know where he actually was. And then we have Cortez here, which he is responsible for conquering Mexico and wiping out a civilization there. This all leads to the Protestant Reformation. After people start to question what's in the world, they start to question, why are we listening to the Catholic Church? It's led by this guy, Martin Luther. It splits the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church loses political power, which means monarchs, kings, will gain political power. To our time period of absolute monarchs. That means one king with absolute power. He does this through divine right, which is his power comes straight from God, so you really can't question it. And then what the king says goes. Whatever he says becomes law. You can't question it, you do what he tells you to do. And this wonderful person here is Louis XIV. He was the person we looked at in detail because he is the example for what an absolute monarch really is. The Enlightenment starts because new ideas surface on how government should operate. We see this debate between Locke and Hobbes, the two guys at the bottom. One believes the government should have complete control and you shouldn't have any say. The other one believes the government really shouldn't interfere with anything unless they're protecting your life, your liberty, and your property. That's really the only thing the government should do. Other than that, stay out of it. This spreads the idea of equality and fairness in government. All these things with fairness and equality in government leads to revolutions. People question absolute monarchs on equality and fairness because it really doesn't seem fair that one person can tell them what to do all the time and they have to do it. People that aren't having their basic needs met, like food, shelter, clothing, they want to overthrow the government, which leads to this whole idea of out with absolute monarchs and in with democracies, republics, socialism, and communism. And a few places we'll see dictators rise up through this too. We studied the French Revolution in detail because it really is the model for all other revolutions. Because really all you have to know is the basics of the French Revolution and you can apply that to a lot of different regions in the world. The Industrial Revolution is a huge leap in technology. Things are going to be made in factories instead of by hand. People move from farms and rural areas to cities for work, and it's going to be the growth of big cities. The picture here is just one factory, but we see a huge demand for factory jobs, which are better paying than farm jobs, but they also have their downsides too. Which is going to lead to imperialism. It's a competition for resources and land. You need to get the natural resources for your factories that your country really doesn't have enough of. In the process, you grow an empire that will increase your global power. The problem is, it creates lots of conflict on how the goals are accomplished for each country. The picture shows England as an imperial nation because England really rules when it comes to finding new colonies, setting up colonies, and using them for their benefit. Which is going to lead to World War I. Imperialism conflicts boil over. Countries just really can't take it anymore and want to go to war. The alliance system creates two sides in Europe, so it makes it easier to go to war. Militarism, which is building your military strength, causes huge industrial militaries to clash. When I talk about industrial militaries, we're talking machine guns, tanks. We're talking machines doing the fighting that are going to be pretty horrific for most of the soldiers in this war. And then the nationalism creates a sense of pride that causes people to want to prove the greatness of their nation through war. Which, after the end of World War I, the Treaty of Versailles ends World War I. We have this period of world depression. It really, in Europe, starts a little bit before the U.S., but the U.S. props up a lot of countries, especially Germany, by loaning them money throughout the 1920s. The problem is, the world economy tanks after the U.S. economy fails. The U.S. economy fails because of the stock market crash. We really overspend, and companies are forced to cut back because of overspending, and then everything falls apart. There's large levels of unemployment and poverty, and we have a rise of radical political parties in Germany. The picture here is just one example of people living during this Depression era. In the United States, we call it the Great Depression, but really it was the same situation around the world. And then we have World War II that starts. It really pulls a lot of nations out of the Depression, but it's a failure in the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles causes more problems than it solves. It was really set up to punish Germany, and in the end, that is really bad for Europe because Germany can't fulfill all the things within the Treaty of Versailles, so they just don't. They quit. You have a rise of radical leaders in Germany, Italy, and Japan. We really can't mention World War II without mentioning the Holocaust, which was a systematic extermination of groups of people, especially the Jews within Germany and Europe. It didn't just affect Germany, it affected Europe and other parts of the world. We have Germany and Italy that are ultimately defeated after making some poor military decisions. And then Japan is only defeated after we deploy an atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then it brings us to the modern world. We have the Cold War that comes out of this time period of the atomic bomb. From 1945 to 1991, we have a period that's known as the Cold War. There's no actual fighting that takes place, but everybody is on edge and ready to go to war. It's a big competition between the United States and the Soviet Union for technology, military use, larger military spending, and really this world power idea, wanting to have more power than the other guy. We have a technology race too, which leads to more education in science and math in United States schools. Also, more funding given to science so that we could compete with the Soviet Union. This leads to the space race and ultimately the idea that we needed to put a man on the moon before the Soviet Union. And it brings us to the global economy. In today's modern world, things are much more interconnected than what they used to be. So we have economic unions like the European Union, which is a trade union in Europe, in between European countries to break down trade barriers. We have NAFTA in the United States that encompasses North America, which would be Mexico, the United States, and Canada, that breaks down trade barriers. And then we have OPEC that really controls the price of oil in oil-producing countries. And then that brings us to the connected world. I talked about being connected economically, but we really are a connected world in today's time as far as technology. Now it's possible for us to communicate with others all around the world without even having to meet face to face ever. Why do you think you're even looking at this video now? Now we can review without having to have the whole class discussion. You can watch this video and review everything we've done all year. So I know we moved really quickly through this, but I went over the main points that we need to remember, and hopefully we'll be able to review a little bit more in class, but if not, then this video will do a pretty good job of helping jog your memory on all the things we've talked about. Thanks for watching.